Dr. Flight. Hi, hope you're doing great today. It's good to be touching base with you. This video is going to focus on the idea of segmenting. And this is a big component of what we do in marketing, and in particular, when we do segmenting, targeting, and positioning, those three things together, what we're collectively doing is we're looking at what the market offers, or what the industry or firms offer to the market, and we want to position our products or our value proposition to match or meet what customer needs are. And so we need to understand what their needs are and how our customers group together by those by what they're looking for and what they see value in the marketplace. And so those groups of consumers then are called market segments. And so this is a process then of identifying market segments based on what their needs and wants are, and then matching or positioning our product towards those specific groups that we want to target. And so you hear all those terms together. You hear segmenting and positioning and targeting because they all sort of work in concert with each other. You'll recall this image that you see kind of looks like what our exchange theory map looked like, where we had firms on one side and customers on the other, and they met together in the middle to form an exchange in a marketplace. And the same idea kind of flows from that. This is one of these seminal concepts that keep coming up in terms of how we understand marketing, and it's the intersect between what companies bring in terms of value to the marketplace and what customers want in value, what they value in a purchase that will meet their needs and wants. So this kind of extends a lot of what we've talked about already this term. However, we introduced this idea that three separate tasks are performed. The first traditionally is segmenting, so that's why we'll talk about that here, and then choosing the targets, which is in a different set of videos, and then finally positioning, and that means bringing your product into the view of the customer in an appropriate way. So what is segment? What is segmentation? Why do we do this? And the sort of, I don't know if you call it the textbook phraseology, would be something along the line of where we take a heterogeneous group of consumers and we break them up into homogeneous groups. And heterogeneous just means that we have a group of people or customers who have different likes, different wants, different needs. And what we're going to do is rearrange them so that they're grouped into homogeneous groups, or groups who have homogeneous or very similar needs or wants or interests and such. So it's the breaking up and reassigning consumers into groups that sort of make sense. So again, this homogeneous group is a segment of consumers who think and react similarly to business or marketing stimuli. And that's really an important concept, that once we do this regrouping of consumers, they will behave in similar fashions when we, for instance, change price or create an ad or redistribute the product, or do something in branding. Something that we do from a business or marketing perspective causes a reaction in the marketplace, and what we want to do is find consumers who think and react similarly to each other based on those stimuli or those changes that we make. So that's kind of one of the big concepts that we need to push towards if you want to have successful segmentation. And again, these are groups of consumers who share similar feelings or sentiments towards a brand or a marketing plan or something to that effect. So when we get into segmenting, then we're going to have what we call segmentation bases, or identifying variables that allow us to match a variable to a behavior or to a group of consumers. So if we have all the consumers who match a criteria or bases, then we might be able to group them together. The question is, what will those bases be, or what will those variables be that we use to group consumers upon? And traditionally, there are these groupings of variables, if you will. Demographic variables, for instance, are used a lot, and they're very common. Geographic variables and behavioral variables are available as well. Now, behavioral variables tend to be reflective. They tend to show what a consumer does when they interact with a brand, or what they do when they consume a product. Geographic variables tend to be based on geography, like the characteristics of the space in which a consumer is. And demographic variables tend to be these just very reflective characteristics, again, of the human, of the person who is the consumer. Other traits, though, exist, or other defining variables here that we could use as segmentation bases, which deal with psychological factors and need-based factors. And these are far better bases to use when you want to predict behavior. So that's an important takeaway here. Demographic, geographic, and behavioral traits are fantastic for classification purposes, but they very rarely, or don't always anyways, help us understand the motives behind why somebody wants what they want, why they want the product. And so psychological traits, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, are far better indicators or explainers of behavior, as opposed to the behavior itself, and also a needs-based perspective as well. So when we talk about needs, we can kind of think about a three-step process. And again, think of these as groups of variables that we could use as tools to segment markets. And again, this is a very data-driven process. We gather a lot of data about our consumers. We use that data then to create these groups and subsequently profiles of customers who all act similarly to each other in light of our marketing efforts. So start with needs. Just kind of think about, what does a consumer need? What do they want? What is their motivation for making a purchase? From that, we have things like behavior, attitude, purchase, loyalty, purchase behavior, word of mouth behavior, like they're willing to talk about our product or spread news about it. Affect, which it can be positive or negative, but these tend to be very internal traits, right? So these are internal traits, and sometimes we call these formative indicators. So these help form our motivation, they help form our wants, they help form the things that we do. And then finally, we have this idea of reflective variables or reflective indicators that they don't really tell us why somebody wants to buy or why they have a need, or they're less powerful in predicting that anyways. And they tend to be your things like demographic variables and geographic variables and things like that. So that's why these, so when we talk about demographics, oftentimes it's a reflective thing. It doesn't cause behavior, but it kind of might be a reflective thing. Occasionally, we certainly do have these types of variables that might lead to a need or want. You think about age, for instance. People who are younger have different needs for products, different product needs than people who are older in some cases. People who are older, maybe in their 50s or 60s, they may have, for instance, retirement financial instruments that they're very much involved with, whereas a younger person in their teens or early 20s may not be as concerned about that. They might not be in that market for a financial instrument that deals with retirement, whereas an older person would definitely be. And again, that you could say, okay, well, age does play a role in determining that need or want. But in many, many cases, that's not the case. Many times these demographic features are not do not induce, if you will, a need or a want. So there's not always that link. Occasionally there is, but most often it's not. So again, we can look at this kind of segmentation concept from a needs-based perspective. Here's an image where we look at toothpaste, and we have different segments. We have 4 different market segments. Now they've been named. The warrior, the social, the sensory, and the independent. So these are groups of consumers. And the warrior is driven by this concern for tooth decay and oral hygiene. The sociable group, tooth decay as well, but also whitening features. And then sensory, prevent decay, taste and flavor. And then the independents are more drawn towards value. Now you can see how we have different sizes for each of these 4 market segments that are driven by these differentiating benefits as it's explained here. The largest is the oral hygiene group. 50% of the market is made up of this segment, all the way down to 5% of the value-driven independent consumers. And again, independent is just a name they've given this profile or this group. And then we have other things here like key demographics, the lifestyle. And think about lifestyle. If you're social and active, then the idea of teeth whitening will promote that lifestyle. Right. And so you kind of think about the characteristics then of what this group of consumers would buy, or each of these 4 groups, and you have what we call a profile. But remember again, and the idea here is this is a needs-based type of approach. Another example of a needs-based approach, this one is more just utilitarian, I guess. Think about the idea of building a house and the components and the pieces that you put into it. And this in particular is siding for a house. And we have 2 different market segments that are identified. One is a market segment that is price focused, value driven. So there's a clear budget involved here, and price is the main dominator. That differentiates the market segments. The other one, segment A, is more focused on quality. They're quality oriented, and they would be willing to forego price somewhat in order to get the quality that they want. So you see these 2 trade-offs that are driving the motivation to buy or to choose a siding company. And in this particular case, we start with kind of the purpose and the goals that they have. And the things that they want, and you can kind of think that, well, if I'm going to do a marketing plan, if I'm going to bring my product to market, my strategies for segment B, the price-oriented folks, is going to be completely different than the strategies I'll use for the quality-oriented folks. And understanding that nuance helps you position your product, bring your product to the market appropriately to match the needs of each one of these 2 markets. A third example deals with personal computers, PCs, who have different needs. We have 3 different product types in this particular case: level 1, level 2, and level 3. In level 1, you have your base model. Level 2 is a little bit better, a little bit more expensive. Level 3 is even more so. So just look at the processor speeds. Level 1, you have the base model. Level 2 is a time and a half faster. types of computer, and level 3 is 2 times faster than level 1. Level 3 is. So here we have product features, and they're sort of, you move up from 1, 2, and 3. And if you don't need a fast computer, then you don't want to need to pay as much for it. But if you need a faster computer, the company, as a result, charges a premium for that fast speed. Right? So that's kind of what we're thinking of here. And you can kind of go down these campaigns that are happening here. If it's the media drive, the operating system, the carrying case, the warranty, the hard drive size, the memory. So we have all these different features, like there's 7 or 8 different features here. Each one of those, though, comes with a price differential that accounts for that feature. So let's just say we have different customers who, we have professionals, we have media-driven non-professionals who want a lot of speed and ability to watch movies and video games and things like that. We have casual users who are maybe not professionals, but they use a computer every once in a while for basic computing needs. And so, based on those 3 different types of consumers, these products match what those consumers need or what they want. So again, just another way to look at thinking about the needs of the customers and then matching that value proposition you're trying to attain or achieve towards that group. In a B2B environment, we have small business. This is just a one where we have 2, again, kind of like the example with the siding, we have 2 different types of B2B environments for small business here. We have one type of small business that's growth oriented. So they're looking to expand, they're risk takers, they want to develop new products, they want to reach new markets, they want to grow sales and market share. That's kind of their mindset. The other wants to probably play a defensive position and guard their market share, guard their profits, and push their own internal costs down in order to become more profit oriented. Just kind of thinking that. So we have 2 different types of philosophies, I guess you will, in running your small business. And as you approach one, if you recognize what their goals are, then you can, in a business to business environment, if I'm selling to another business, knowing that that's the type of business it is, then that is instrumental in how I'm going to position my product and ultimately sell to them. And you'll use a different sales approach depending on whether the company's growth oriented or cost focused in this particular case. Again, understanding this idea of need helps drive so many other components of understanding your market and what you're going to do. Okay, so circling back a little bit, there's a couple there are a couple things here on this screen and then the next. This is just sort of a list of different criteria that have been used or popularized in terms of variables that you could gather and then use to segment your market upon. So again, demographic variables there could be a big list here. This is just 5 or so. Income, age, marital status, education, occupation. Again, these are things that probably aren't going to drive need and motivation so much, but they reflect consumers who are in a group. So if for instance, a lot of people who are in a specific market segment who have a specific need, if they match a certain age target or income level or educational level, then you can use those age, income, and whatnot to sort of, if you find those, then they reflect the need that's often looked at in that case. So they're useful, but they're not determinant. They're reflective. Lifestyle is another one, again, can be very valuable. Lifestyle tends to capture lots and lots of different elements. You can see attitudes, values, activities, political views, kind of belief systems, those types of things. Usage or behavior is another space. Okay, so the behavioral category is there. So quantity of product purchased and consumed over a period of time. High users, low users, for instance, when they're used, when they're bought, all of those types of things it can fall into that type of category. And down below, you'll see geographic segmentation. And again, there's a number of different variables here. Density, population density is a big one. Certainly climate might be something that you use. Region, like geopolitical regions, things like that, size of the population. Those are all elements that can be used. And then finally, we have a big section called psychographic segmentation. And these are very similar to lifestyles. In fact, lifestyle is in here as a psychographic segmentation thing. But self-image, your personality, again, attitudes and beliefs, aspirations. There's a lot of kind of carryover to lifestyle here, but these are all internal. These are all things that happen inside your mind, inside the way you think, and they help frame what you are. So lifestyle is a little different in the sense that it's sort of a collection of all of these things. In fact, there are tools out there that will create these lifestyle sort of groupings. You might be familiar with age cohorts. So age cohort, it's not a demographic, and I think it's really important to stress this, that an age cohort's not a demographic. It's marked by when people are born. However, what drives an age cohort are the experiences that frame people in their consumption patterns. So people who are born in a certain time frame experience things socially together, and whatever those experiences are lead to or drive consumption patterns. So age cohorts are more of a lifestyle and more of a psychographic tool than they would ever be in a demographic sense. A lot of people confuse that. A lot of people don't understand that concept, but it's important to know the difference there. There are other ones too, though. The textbook will have a different set of ones. There's something called the Warner Index of Status Characteristics. So we've heard of like upper, middle, lower class, and there are others here, right? Upper, lower, upper middle, upper lower, and lower, and some different sort of descriptions of what they have and the consumption characteristics they share. So again, like age cohorts, you pick an age cohort and you could describe them by the years in which they were born, but what really creates the category are how those people in that group consume and how they think about making purchases. Same thing here. This is typically driven by income and types of occupation, and maybe where you live, and some of those types of things. Kind of pushing where, kind of what group you are. But the key here is how people behave, and the groupings of behaviors are more relevant and more important when we start looking at social status groupings or characteristics. Another thing we can do is the stages of the family life cycle, right? So when we look at that, we're looking at like when a person first becomes independent in their consumption patterns, and then as they have social interactions, whether it's with a spouse or with significant others, whether they have children, as they age, they hit different milestones. So again, it's marital status or relational status, it's age, it's place in your career, kind of over your career time span where you are there, So there's all those things that you could say, well, those are demographic stuff, but when you put them together, it reflects a group of consumers who behave and they again consume in similar fashions, and they have similar interests and things like that. So go from bachelor all the way down to solitary survivor, retired. And that you get all of these different groups. And again, people move through these stages in a fairly predictable way. And if you're in a stage and others are in that stage, it's likely that you behave similarly to others in that large group. Okay, there are some other techniques here. We have something called the Value and Lifestyle Scale, the VALS Lifestyle Scale. This is a survey that you can take, and then it will place you into one of these 8 different categories. So this was created as a commercial product. So a company created this survey, and they have these 8 different characteristics, whether they're innovators or survivors. And this is based on the degree to which you're able to use skills and the skills that you have. If you have a lot of skills and resources, they call them, then you tend to push higher, and how innovative you are. But each one of these groups, again, based on these characteristics or of these criteria, resources and innovation, fall into different groups, and they've named these groups. Innovators, survivors, thinkers, and so on and so forth, based on this criteria and kind of how they formed these things. Here's a little chart. Again, if you want to pause, you absolutely can if you want to look at these, but we have our 8 different groups listed, or types, and we have a kind of characterization of their resources, and then other features that they have and their characteristics, and an example of some of the media they might use. Again, this is just kind of one of the older examples, but I think the point here is that we're using criteria to establish groups of consumers who act in a similar way. Or behave in a similar way, and these could all be thought of as segmentation type things. Again, this is an older slide, which should probably be updated with newer data from VALS themselves, from the company that produces VALS, and it walks through the 8 different types across the top. We have from innovators to survivors. But then it also does a sort of a profile, if you will, of how many are in this case, the US, what types of consumption patterns they have. And again, they group together. They act as if they're in groups, and each group is distinct. So the innovator person is not going to be grouped as the same as an achiever or an experiencer. They will have different consumption patterns based on, again, this is from the VALS survey. I can't remember how many items it has in it, but it's really long. And it's a survey of personal interests and the way you view life and how you make decisions. And when they take all of that data together, they'll analyze it and they'll put you into one of these 8 groups. So this is something you can actually do. If you go to their website, you can take the survey and you can score. It'll score you into one of these groups and tell you what type you are, what type of VALS type you are. And again, that stands for Value and Lifestyle. It's a scale of questions that group people into these categories. Okay, so this has been a short video on some of the principles of segmentation. I hope it's been beneficial. I think this is a really big data-driven space. There'll be some more videos to look at. So thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any questions.